Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is the Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
And welcome everybody to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodling, and of course with me is Marilyn Bradford. Hi, Marilyn.
Hey, Pam. Here we are again.
I know. I feel like it's been so long.
I know. Families, illness, all kinds of weird stuff.
We've had all kinds of things going on that we haven't had a live show for a while. So we are so glad to be on live with you guys today. By the way, if you have any questions for us, you can enter those on our Facebook page. Just go to the Irreverent Therapists on Facebook and let us know what questions you have. Our topic today is in sickness and in health. Forget about the partner of your dreams. Would you take yourself in sickness and in health? I like that. Would you? Would you commit to yourself that way? Have you made a commitment to another before you've actually made one to you? And how do you define sickness and health? Who decides what that means? Is it just physical? What about mental, emotional, and what some people call spiritual? Is it all arbitrary? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. And Marilyn, just reading that little paragraph, it's like there's so many places we could go with this.
Absolutely.
Is there anywhere in particular you would like to jump into first?
Well, let's go to the, sickness part, because this is very applicable. I seem to, after helping to nurse my mom back to health, now I've got some kind of mega sinusitis infection, which may be oversharing, but probably not.
Tell us all the details.
No, I think we'll leave out the details. But one thing that I notice is, this whole business of when I take myself in sickness and in health. When I get sick, I get angry at myself. And I know that my tolerance, my immune system is down and all of those kinds of things. And I can't walk and I don't feel well enough to blah, 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 blah. But I was noticing that today, thinking about the show, I'm much happier taking myself in health than I am taking myself in sickness.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that I don't feel valuable when I'm sick, or of value, I think is a better way to put it. Which is, of course, a judgment and all kinds of things, and we should be productive. But hopefully I'm going to use this experience to change a few things.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any of that stuff that you've been talking about. I don't judge myself at all for being sick.
Not ever.
Well, and this really is really relevant because, for me, I came back from Costa Rica and was basically, I'm putting air quotes around it, sick, and I'll explain why in a few minutes, for 3 weeks. And, and then you were sick, you were nursing your mom and you were sick and I would, we've just had quite a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
The reason I put the air quotes around it is, from an access perspective, and Marilyn and I are both access consciousness facilitators, when something's going on with your body, it isn't necessarily like this, I have the flu, I have a cold. When you start asking questions, you can find out there's often a lot you're aware of or, different things going on that look like being sick. So for me, I would say it was much more of that. It was my body going through tremendous transformation, which looked a lot like being sick and felt a lot like being sick.
It felt a lot like being sick. Well, and one of the things I think that we forget sometimes is when the being goes through enormous change, the body also has to go through enormous change.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only way that it works is if it just kind of collapses for a while.
Well, and like that sheds a whole different, this in sickness and in health, we're getting that from, the typical USA
wedding vows. Yes.
I don't know if they say that kind of stuff in other places, but it's very typical here. And, so one thing is if you're committing to be there for someone in sickness and in health, from this whole sickness isn't necessarily sickness thing. That puts a whole different light on it.
It puts a whole different spin on it. It absolutely does.
I'll be there for you, whatever change and transformation you choose to go to.
Oh, I kind of like that, because actually that's one of the things that tends to, I find, break up marriages more than anything, is that one partner is changing and the other partner isn't.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, what happened to you? I liked you the way you were. You're not the man, woman I married,
I wouldn't know anything about that.
You wouldn't? Oh my gosh.
So, anyway, sickness and in health, we're just kind of going all over the place here.
Well, I think, one of the main things, because I wrote up that little description, one of the main things I really wanted to get to is just this whole business of how we'll commit to another before we've even committed to ourselves in our life.
Well, and what is commitment anyway? I mean, what does it mean to commit to someone else, and what does it mean to commit to yourself?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. I think we know, at least traditionally, what it means to commit to someone else, like in a marriage. Even now with the modern day wedding vows, it's still a lot of, I promise to be there for you and blah, 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 blah. I don't think a lot of people even know what they're saying. I think what is commitment anyway? That's a very good question.
Well, I mean, what I would say, like the way people think of it these days, to me, it's saying no matter what, meaning I'm going to cut off my awareness. I'm not going to be willing to ask questions.
I like that one. We might have to talk about
changing, that. Right? It's like no matter what, I'm agreeing to, pretty much be here with you the way I am now,
right.
And without any regard for what might change for either or both of us or us together, and awareness and different possibilities and that kind of thing. It's like we're taking a picture right now, and the way things are now, we're committing to keeping that going.
Right. Or at least keeping it on the normal path. Say you marry in your 20s, then you both have agreed you're going to have children, and that changes things somewhat. But, you both agreed they're going to go to college, and one's going to be a doctor and one's going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But so it is a path, but it's a very defined path, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I think probably, most people who are doing this in sickness and in health commitment thing, the idea is we're going to make this relationship the number one thing, and we're going to keep together no matter what.
Right.
Which also means that even if what's going to create something greater for everyone involved is to not be together, that option's no longer on the table.
Well, there's this thing, and at least it's in America, and it's been changing a little bit. But I remember when I first went to psychotherapy like a godzillion years ago, one of the things my therapist asked me was, do you have any long-term friends? And I did. I said, yeah, people I've been friends with for, at that point, 20 years or something like that. That's good. That's a sign of maturity. And, and later I look at that and I'm like, I'm not sure that's true. It could be a sign that nobody's changed in 20 years.
Everybody's stuck in one place. Yeah.
So, the gold watch, well, and they were married for 50 years. That says a lot, Well, it doesn't really say anything, because you don't know if they just tolerated each other, or she was abusive and he was afraid to leave, or he was abusive and she was afraid to leave, or they just couldn't disappoint their parents, or whatever.
Yeah.
So can we destroy and uncreate the idea that commitment means staying in or with something a long time, that's valuable?
Yes.
Okay, so everything that is, can we destroy and uncreate it times a godzillion?
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And what we're using right now is the Access Clearing Statement, and you can find out more about that at theclearingstatement.com. So, it's basically a way of just clearing the energy of something totally. But yeah, so it's so there's the way we use commitment, which is really like a way of cutting off ourselves to be in commitment to whatever. But that's not actually the only possibility with commitment.
Right. So, would you like to say more about that?
I might just go on about the other kind of commitment till it's time for a break, because we're not that far from it. But, the other thing I think of with commitment is getting committed to a mental health psych hospital.
Yes, I'm committed to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, it's like there's so many different ways we use this word, but it's, I think the way we tend to use it is, now that I've made this commitment, I have no more choice.
Yes.
This commitment has to come first. And so I think when we come back, maybe what we can talk about is, well, what are you committing to? Because, you and I, we both were there for a wedding last month or in October, where what they were committing to was, I'm committing to being myself. I will be myself, and I will
not change for you.
I won't, cut myself off for you, and I'm gonna, I commit to letting you be who you are and not trying to get you to change. Like all these different things. And I was like, that kind of commitment is a totally different thing. And the snapshot of who we are now is how we have to keep being.
Well, and also I think we are about to, we got 15 seconds here. Commitment means I can't, under no circumstances, change this.
Yeah.
So you're locked in. You're really locked in.
Yeah. So on that nice heavy note,
light note, right?
Break, and come back and talk about a different possibility.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Hello, everybody. Is that you, Pam?
Oh my goodness, I was on mute. All this wonderful stuff I've been saying, and it didn't get on the radio. So, I'm Pam Hoagland, who was having technical difficulties, and with me is Marilyn Bradford, and we're talking about in sickness and in health. So where were we, Marilyn, when we left?
I think you were going to say some other things about different types of commitments. Other interpretations.
Yeah. So, it's this whole thing of what you were saying before we went on the break of we tend to use commitment as once I've committed, I can't change. I can't change my mind. I can't change how I'm showing up. I can't change what I'm expecting of you, that kind of thing. I think a different kind of commitment, and it might just be about what it is you're committing to. Because say you're committing to yourself and you're saying, like, no matter what, I'm going to change this. That commitment allows for me to ask questions, to choose different things, to, explore all kinds of possibilities, because no matter what it takes, I'm changing this.
I also think about that whole thing that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, talks about, and Dr. Dane here too, about committing to your life.
Yes.
And not having a back door. And that's, I don't think many people are actually truly committed to their lives with no kind of back door. It's kind of like committing to a marriage with no possible way to get a divorce, only much greater, I think.
So talk more about that, because I think committing to your life is a totally different idea.
Yeah, I don't even really know what, to say about it, although I've asked a lot of questions about it. But it is basically saying, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm going to create and be and do everything I can be and do. And there's no thing like, well, if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, I'm just going to kind of check out psychologically, or I'm going to check out.
Kill myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I'll just stay in a bad situation. I won't, there's no qualifications in that sense. There's no, you don't get any excuses, and we check out in different ways. You can, not be committed to your life and then be committed to somebody else's life. It's sort of like, well, my life didn't work out. I'm just going to go get in Mary's universe over here and be a walk-on part in her life.
Well, and it's like when you're not committed to your life, I'm going to change how I'm saying this. So often what people do is look to someone else to complete them and complete their life.
Right.
And I'm only happy if I'm with you, and I'm only happy if, my life is only okay if blah, 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 blah. When you're committed to your life, it's like it doesn't matter where you are, who you're with, what the outside circumstances are. You've made that commitment to your life to create and be and nothing and no one is going to change it.
Well, and I think that last part. I'm still investigating this myself. But it means the other thing that committing to your life tends to bring up is then you're not dependent on other people and you don't try to control them. Yeah. Now, when I say you're not dependent, I'm not talking about John Wayne. I'll do it all myself, which I notice I do when I get sick. My neighbor's like, can I help you? And it's like, no, fine. I got everything. I got it all under control. But it's actually, it would be more like, we're good friends. If you said to me, you know what, Marilyn, I'm moving to China and I'm going on a silent retreat for 3 years, I'd be like, okay. I hope it's awesome for you. Rather than, oh no, you can't leave me. How could you do that? Doesn't our friendship mean anything to you? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
You wouldn't guilt me into staying, so life would be fine.
Exactly. Don't you dare upset my life in which I've got everybody in certain slots and, this is the way things are.
Well, you know what that makes me think of, Marilyn? It's like, I'm going to see if I can actually articulate this.
I know, we picked a topic that's rather difficult to articulate.
But what you're saying about, say, I was going to move to China and you're like, oh, but she's never going to be in my life. But, like say we had that kind of relationship, right? Where you're dependent on me or something. My brain is going to that commitment like we talked about at the beginning, like the wedding vows where, I think part of what that is this assumption that the other person's going to be there for you in a way that makes you okay.
Yes.
And whereas if you were married to someone from the space Marilyn's talking about of, hey, I enjoy you while you're here, and if you're going to move to China, awesome, have a wonderful time.
Right.
Like we don't, as a society, we don't think of marriage as having that possibility.
Right.
It's you got married, so now you're together unless it goes wrong, and then you have to get divorced. But to have the idea of you could commit to someone, choose to marry them, always having the allowance for what they're choosing and what's going to create something greater for them and for you, and that may or may not be staying together.
Right. Exactly. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, sometimes people say, oh, access is against relationship. And, and we say it's not against, using the access tool. It's not that relationship is bad. It's just bad relationship.
Right. Good or bad.
We're against bad relationship, but there's all kinds of amazing, awesome relationship. And I'm getting that maybe commitment's the same way. It's like, depending on what it is you're committing to and whether you're cutting yourself off to make commitment or whether you're expanding yourself and your possibilities with commitment.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Well, because if I'm committing to my life,
yes,
that's expansive and greater possibilities.
That's expansive and greater possibilities. Absolutely.
And if I'm committing to someone else, like that, we're choosing to be in a relationship where we're going to live together and plan our lives together and stuff like that, if that's from that space of, hey, you're who you are, I'm who I am, let's play together, and when it's time to change, we change it.
Well, and I think it's that sense that you invite people into your life, but it's up to them to say yes or no. It's also, if you're truly committed to your life, you're not joined at the hip with anybody.
Yeah.
And you're not, here we go, Pam. It's the commitment to your life is the willingness to be aware in every 10 seconds about where you are, what actually works for you, what are you going to choose, that versus the kind of commitment that where you basically choose to be unaware. Well, now I'm married. Now that's settled. I don't ever have to worry about that for the next 50 years. And now that we're married, I don't have to pretend to be somebody I'm not. You hear all these stories of people who get married and their partner changes immediately.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, I don't have to woo you. It's like, ooh, gosh, that just doesn't sound too good at all. So anyway, committing to your life, sickness and in health.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just going to the sickness and health part again and looking at that. I mean, what is sickness and what is health? I mean, it's in a way you could say, well, we've already talked about commitment, like why even go to sickness and health?
Yes.
But I think there's something there too of how we perceive ourselves and perceive other people and our responsibilities and limit ourselves when there could be greater choices.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, and this was very interesting with my mother being so ill, and she lives in Texas and I live in New Mexico, and I actually made the choice to move here about a year and a half ago. I just had to that was a choice for me. I had to get out of Austin. And when I landed back there, however long, about a month ago, I was like, oh boy, just energetically, I could see I couldn't live here. I just couldn't do it. And in a way, there was the part of me and other people, well, your mother's elderly and she could die at any time. And I'm like, I know I can be there in 24 hours or less, but I cannot live there anymore.
Yeah.
And yet when this came up, I knew I needed to go. And that wasn't like I needed to go because that's what society told me. It was like I needed to go because it was just the right thing to do for me.
Actually, let me rephrase that for you. You had the awareness.
Yes, I did.
That being there was required.
Yes, exactly.
For you, for her, not from obligation, not from commitment to, I have to sacrifice myself to be there, just the awareness of what it would create.
Yes, and it did create. It absolutely created for me to be there. And I also knew, and this is what happens with awareness, I knew that I needed to have an open-ended ticket.
Yep.
And then after, or whatever it was, 2.5 weeks, it was time to come back. But that's operating from awareness rather than what should I do and trying to think about it in linear terms. And
right. And on that note, we're going to go to break. We will be back to talk more about in sickness and in health.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And this time I did not forget to unmute myself. We are the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodling, and with me, of course, is Marilyn Bradford, and we are talking about in sickness and in health. And so just before the break, Marilyn, you were talking about your experience going out to see your mother who was in the hospital. what I was thinking about is just this last week, my ex slipped on ice and injured himself. And it's because we have a very different relationship.
We have a very different relationship and very different take on commitment.
Yes. Because what I would say is we're still very committed to each other. We're committed to parenting together and to, creating our relationship as something that works for us. And, we don't have any of the angst and bitterness and all that kind of stuff that people usually have when they split up. So, anyway, when he called me, it was like, I slipped on the ice. I can't move.
Oh boy.
And he wasn't outside still. He was inside, but, I won't go into all the details. Right. But, but basically it was like, okay, set aside everything I have going on, not in a way that's losing myself and I have to take care of him, but it was totally what contribution can I be, and when I picked him up from the hospital, I was like, you really should not be alone.
Right, exactly.
So I was like, come stay at my house. And, it's like we were able to do all these things that you would normally think people who are separated or divorced would not be able to do. And it wasn't from obligation and it wasn't from I have to take care of him or anything. It was just being present in the moment and what's required and what works. And I have a commitment to my kid's dad to be a contribution in his life.
Absolutely.
And he has that for me. So, so that to me is a very different kind of commitment. And we started out, however many years ago we got married. I think it's getting close to 20 years ago. We did the vows but we've been willing to keep looking at our relationship and allow it to evolve and change and be, not be tied to who we were and how we looked at things 20 years ago.
Right. And I think that's amazing because you all have developed different interests and, he does his theater stuff and you do a lot with Access and have developed some new businesses and, but there doesn't seem to be any, am I included? Am I not included? And you shouldn't be doing that,
Nope.
And I think part of when you're truly committed to your life, you don't need to control other people.
Yeah.
You don't need to make them into anything they're not.
Yeah. And I would say it's like, we've allowed each other to change and to not try to limit that or restrict it. But we've also both allowed our own ideas of what relationship is and what works in relationship to totally change.
Yeah. That's very cool. Could you mention a couple of those changes that you have from the outside sort of look like normal family, 2 kids, a boy and a girl,
Right.
Or a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. Well, I'd say one thing is, so even when we were still, thinking of ourselves as married and living together and everything, we had for many years been aware that we're together because we're choosing every day to be together.
That's very cool.
Saying in sickness and in health 20 years ago means nothing. That a relationship is something that you continually create and choose every day. And so we were already being that space within what looks like a normal relationship, so that when one of us said, hey, do you want to do this anymore? What's it going to create if we're apart? What's it going to create if we're together? And we started asking questions and looking at it, there wasn't ever any wait, but you promised, and because we'd already come to the place of it's like, no, it's a choice every day. Now we're choosing something different. And
that's very cool.
Yeah. And from that space, then there is the commitment of like I would say I am committed to being a contribution to my kids, to their dad, to all of us, having the space to create and be. And that is a different kind of commitment than I'm committing to, we're always going to live together and we're always going to share finances and we're always going to, choose the same direction in life.
Right. So we're really talking about two kinds of commitment. One is where you're sealed in, solidified, and you don't have to be present. It's an automatic pilot commitment.
Yeah.
And the other is a commitment to awareness and asking questions and being present and choosing for you, which people think is selfish, but truly choosing for you when you're committing from awareness actually includes other people in it.
Yeah, it includes everyone in the awareness of what's being created, for everyone and everything around you.
Yeah, so that's very different.
So I just say that's brilliant. Can I?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The way you just summed that up of, there's, the commitment that's sealed and solidified, and there's the commitment that's about commitment to awareness. I think that's it. That's
kind of it. I did think of one other thing we haven't broached yet, and that is being committed to your body.
Ooh, I'm not so good at that one.
I don't know that I am either.
So let's talk about that. What would it be to be committed to your body?
Well, my sense is it's the same thing. It's like I wouldn't be angry at my body for being sick. I'd be asking questions and asking for whatever awareness it had to give me.
Oh, wait. I just had the most amazing aha.
Okay, cool. I like aha.
It's kind of oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I'm doing this way. But okay, so when I look at the commitment I have with my body, it's totally that sealed, dense, cutting your, it's like it is not a happy place. I have not been doing the commitment to my body that is the commitment to awareness and expansion.
Well, you get 2 demerits.
I do. Bad access facilitator.
Bad access facilitator. Bad access facilitator. But I think there are other ways to commit to our bodies, and it's not just like, okay, it's not imposing. It's not like, all right, we're going on a vegan diet and then a fast, and then you're going to walk or run 6 miles a day, and then we're doing Pilates, and it's really about, once again, that's the old kind of commitment. That's the locked in versus I'm going to be present with my body every 10 seconds. And I'm going to ask my body, hey, body, how does this seem? Yeah. I've been asking my body all day today about, because we won't go into details, but let's just say I lost my appetite. And
TMI. I know.
TMI, but all right, can we have some tea? Can we have, what's really going to work here? And interestingly enough, I asked my body if she wanted to go get an antibiotic. It wasn't just like, oh, I have these symptoms again. I'm like, okay, we have choices here. Do you actually desire? And my body was like, we need this go round. So it's really that willingness to be present with and listen to, and not, true commitment seems to me is about not separating, not in the old sense of we'll be together forever, but in the sense of inclusion.
Yeah.
You include.
We started this show off and you were saying you get mad at your body when it gets sick. Right?
I do.
And
sometimes.
It's like,
I'm not.
But that's that kind of like, when we were talking about marriage and I commit in sickness and in health, and no matter what, we're going to be together, blah, blah, blah. And we talked about how that's expecting each other to keep showing up in a certain way.
Yes.
So it's like, if I have that kind of commitment with my body, then I'm going to be pissed at my body if it's not showing up the way I want it to show
But the way I want it to show up, whether it's because a few pounds or some wrinkles or
being sick or anything.
Or being sick or anything. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that's where the control, where what you were talking about of I'm going to go to Pilates and I'm going to go running, I'm going to eat, blah, 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 blah. All these things we impose on our bodies also comes from that same kind of commitment where you're locked in and you're like expecting your body to be a certain way and that you've got to make it behave.
And it's like, excuse me, I had plans. You just disrupted my plans. I did not plan on staying in for 5 days. Let's see, I think I'll get sick and stay in from December. It's just like, really?
Yeah.
And
I'm seeing all these parallels, though, between that and people who are, like, married and mad at each other.
Exactly. You weren't supposed to lose your job. You were supposed to take care of me financially.
Right.
My whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or you aren't supposed to look at another man or woman. That's not in the it's the difference between commitment as a whole series of rules, regulations, and commitment through choice in every 10 seconds.
Yeah. So how about everywhere we've been doing the like limited kind of commitment?
Yes.
Try and create that times a godzillion.
Yes.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all night, shorts, boys, and beyonds. So, and especially everywhere we've been doing that with our bodies.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's destroy and create that. Right?
Yes, please.
Pod, poc, all night, shorts, boys, and beyonds. So, we have 30 seconds before the break.
Well, maybe when we come back, you could talk about the whole kid thing.
Oh, commitment to kids.
Commitment to kids, or kids committed to you? Who's committed to whom?
Yeah.
I know that oftentimes you want to commit your kids, but that's
just sometimes.
Just sometimes.
I'm sure no one else ever has that.
Oh, no, I'm sure. As a therapist, I've told people many times, it's okay to hate your kids occasionally. Just keep it in perspective here.
Right. So on that note, we're going to go take a break. And when we come back, we will be talking a little bit more about sickness and health.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business. And share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapists, where we are talking about in sickness and in health. And Marilyn, I know you suggested before the break that I talk about commitment and kids, but I thought of something else I want to do first.
All right.
So we will get to that. But, I was, again, looking at this part about how do you define sickness and health when you're committing to in sickness and in health. And it's, what's coming up to me is, everywhere we judge things like, if, so say I have cancer. Right. Mm-hmm. And then everybody's like, oh my God, that's terrible. And so, then if I was married, then my partner has to be with me, in sickness and in health is being there through this horrible tragedy. Right.
Right.
If I don't have the point of view that me having cancer or me breaking a leg or me, whatever is a problem, then that's a totally different thing, being there in sickness and in health. It's like there is no, because like to me that commitment that we make in marriage I'll be there in sickness and in health, it's like no matter how horrible things get, no matter how great things get, I'll be there. And if you take judgment out of the equation, there is no in the good times and the bad times. It all just is. It's what are we creating in this moment? What's required? How can I contribute? And that's a whole different space.
It's a really different space, Pam, and that's interesting because that's what when you brought that up, I'm like, oh, I didn't look at this, but health and sickness are both judgments.
Yeah.
It's both arbitrary definitions.
Yeah.
So, right. Wow.
Yeah. And then that gets back to, what I said was like this brilliant summing up of what we've been talking about that you did, which is when you're committing to in a way from a space or in a way or to something that's like it's sealed, it's solidified, it's now I'm stuck in this way and nothing can change, along with that goes all this judgment of how people should be and, what is sickness and what is health. And, it's saying, I'm going to be there with you in all the polarity.
Yes. Well, and, this came up for me too. All these assumptions and judgments. Now, my mom is almost 98 years old. And when she got out of the hospital, she was in ICU. It's, right now, the quality of her life is not very good. And she's not able to do many of the things that she's enjoyed doing.
Right. And that this is a sudden change.
Yes.
This is a quality of life.
Yeah. So people are like, well, we just want her to get better. And well, of course we do, if she can. But when you're that old, it's very, because, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be basically to hang on too long after she's lost the quality of life. So what's, sometimes a commitment. I mean, when I was looking at it, I'm like, well, what would I choose? At that point, I think I would choose to go. And that's not being committed to me or my body.
That is being committed to you.
It is, yeah. It's not in the traditional way where the scenario is always that the person gets better. At some point, if things have really deteriorated, that may not be honoring of yourself and your body to stay connected to tubes and all kinds of things.
I almost feel like here we're entering into something that could be its own whole show.
Probably could, yes.
But let's just jump in anyway, even though we only have 4 or 5 minutes. But yeah, it's like the the judgment of better. Oh, I hope your mom gets better. Well, what's better?
What's better? Exactly.
If in this world, better is her physical health is going to improve, or even if it doesn't, she's at least not deteriorating, or, like something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas, well, what if better is whatever is going to contribute to her and ease and expansion in her life, which could be dying, which could be, could be going, wow, I've had an awesome life and now my body's kind of tanking. Cool. How's it getting better than that? And I'm ready to go. And
exactly.
That, we don't usually think of that as being, oh, I hope she gets better. But, when you take all the thing that we have of no matter what, somebody's, the target is to live as long as you possibly can. And instead have it be, what would I like to create? Well, at this moment, I'd like to create easy paths to something different.
Right.
It isn't usually what we consider an option.
No, but it might be a healthy choice.
Yeah. And actually what it makes me think of is in the same way that most people don't conceive of two people who've been married choosing to no longer be married, most people look at that as a bad thing.
Yes, a shameful thing, and even.
Right. Not as a greater possibility.
I failed. That's what I used to hear as a therapist all the time when people got divorced.
Yeah.
I'm a failure.
Yeah. Well, so in the same way that what if choosing to not be married anymore can be creating something greater? What if choosing to not be alive anymore, not because you're depressed and suicidal, but because you're, it's like, yep, body's ready to go. I'm ready to go. It's been an awesome ride, and now it's time. It just seems two parallel things where that doesn't really exist here yet. Of that being a true possibility.
Yeah. And it's interesting because everybody in my family who has died hung on too long. I mean, I remember my grandmother saying, I wish I'd died 2 years ago, because all kinds of crappy stuff happened in the last 2 years of her life.
Yeah.
And my dad had Alzheimer's and was in this nursing home in a wheelchair and couldn't focus on anything. I mean, you basically, he was gone. I mean, he was gone. The body was alive. But yeah, and once again, we're not advocating, this is not about depressed, suicidal people. This is about just acknowledging when the quality of life that the person's choice, if they realize they have choice, and most people don't, would be to just say, okay, body, let's go. And that's it.
It's time. I'm turning off the switch.
Turning off the switch. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And this whole illness, this last go round, which was particularly devastating to my mother's body, really brought up a lot of things for me to look at. And I was communicating with all of her friends, and basically they want their bridge partner back.
Right.
And the person they eat dinner with. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen or not.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting.
It's very interesting, but just to highlight this for everyone, you don't have a point of view about it, and you're asking questions, and you're not trying to put your mom in a box.
No.
Of what should or shouldn't be happening with her. You're not going to, oh no, this is terrible. It's just like, wow, this is really intense. What's possible here? What contribution can I be to her? What's required? Take care of her bills, all that kind of stuff. You're just being there in the moment and choosing and contributing.
And one of the things that I realized is, because everybody wants to do, we'll get the best medical care. Well, she has good medical care. It's the small things. So when she was finally back at the retirement home, I said, what do you want, Mom? What would make your life better? She said, I want a glass of wine. Which probably wasn't allowed, but I went out and got a little bit of wine and brought it over, and she had her glass of wine, and she liked that.
Cool.
But it's often those very small things. I want to read the newspaper. So I had the newspaper transferred. I figured out I could have it transferred over to her room in the healthcare center.
Yeah.
Just, it's the small things that add to our lives, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I was, you know, attempting to do for her any way I could, any way we could make it work.
Yeah.
So, you know, I am committed to asking questions and being with my mother and doing not what's required, but what I know to be correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and the funny thing is when you commit like that, it's easy. It doesn't have that stifling feeling to it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, we could just keep going on now, but we only have like a minute left. But, you know, that when you make a commitment and it feels stifling and heavy, you're probably doing the commitment to solidity and
yes.
You know, being sealed in. When you make a commitment, like a commitment to your life, and it's expansive and empowering and generative, that's when you're committing to awareness and greater possibilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So thanks everybody who joined us. We have no idea what we're doing next week, but I can tell you it will be a live show.
Yay!
After having several weeks of replays, we are back, and so we will be here again same time next week with some sort of awesome show. Hope
absolutely.
You can and you can always go to our Facebook page to ask us questions. The Irreverent Therapists, and
bye everyone.
Bye everybody. We'll talk to you next time.